Good morning, everybody. I'm just gonna grab a cup of coffee and we'll start in like 5 minutes. All righty. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are you?
What's up? Good morning.
How was your weekend?
Pretty good. How was yours?
Not too bad. I did a lot of hiking and I worked out a bunch. Nothing too crazy. But okay, let's get started. I'm going to get all this stuff up and running real quick. I just want to call the office and make sure we're on in the training room. Bum, bum, bum. Did anybody make any inroads, do any lead generation, cold calling, talk to any potential clients, et cetera, et cetera?
So it's Stephanie. I talked to someone and she was telling me her brother is currently looking to buy a home, but said he has two realtors already looking for him. And I was like, isn't there an agreement that you sign that you're like exclusive? I guess you don't have to sign it, but just curious what your experience is with that. And I'm like, it seems like a lot of work for not necessarily, or when does the buyer agreement actually, come into place?
So unfortunately, some buyers will refuse to sign any form of an agreement. That's just some buyers out there. Some actually understand, like, yeah, you know what? I want to reward hard work with, my business or whatever. Some other buyers go like, why should I lock myself down with one agent over the other? Which is why we use that agreement. We basically try to say, hey, we're going to do all this work. We're going to be on the internet all the time looking for, potential listings that are coming on the market. We'll be talking to other agents who might have, pocket listings, that we have access to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because of all this work, here's this agreement, sign it. And this basically means that we're married together and that we're going to be looking, until we find something for at least, 6 months or something. The issue is some buyers will say, well, why should I lock myself down with one agent? So that's the issue that happens sometimes. So unfortunately, if you have somebody who refuses to, sign an exclusive buyer representation agreement, you might have to ask yourself, is it worth, running through all the hoops for this person if that they're going to be working with multiple people. Now, if you don't have another client right now, I'd say still work for him, still try to find him stuff, because if you don't really have anything, you might as well, look for something. But at the same time, I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket, so to speak.
Yeah.
I would definitely start looking for other clients, but maybe set up like a search result thing, and like send them some like listings, here and there, and see if they want to see something.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's frustrating though. I must admit, like I've had multiple situations where I've had somebody like, oh yeah, I totally want to work with you, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you find out that they're working with some other agent. And it's like, are you kidding me? This is horrible. But it happens. It's frustrating, I know, but it's the name of the game, unfortunately, when it comes to buyers. There's a saying that we always say, buyers are liars. So there you have it. Okay, so we are on Ignite number, which one are we on? We're number, I think it says we're one behind, if I'm correct. Well, let me look at my schedule. Yeah, okay, so we're number 4.
It says Ignite number 5.
Yes, we're number 4 though, because we missed one of them and they didn't update that. So okay, let me grab that up. All righty. Okay, let me share my screen. Since we're a little bit running a little bit late because of the power session today, we'll just jump right into it over here. So this one is when the seller practice listing presentation and lead to sign listing agreements. This is the instructor edition. So if there are some answers that you see, just bear with me. So for example, for today's expectations, we want to understand how to use pre-listing packets effectively. I think somebody had asked a question in previous class. What is the pre-listing presentation? This is pretty much what we're talking about. Learn to practice your listing presentation, and then also ask for the listing agreement to be signed. So because we are running a little bit late, oh, excuse me, tired. Who wants to share? I know Stephanie just shared about her buyer situation. Does anybody else have any other situations that they're dealing with sellers, with buyers? I don't want to go one by one. So if somebody has something that they want to share with
I
the
have
group.
just kind of like a learning experience that I just had.
Yes.
You know, I'm pretty, obviously, I'm very, very new to this. There's my face in case you want to see what I look like. I reached out to a friend of mine actually and found out that she's pregnant, having a second baby. This is actually a second friend who I found out is expecting a second baby. Just randomly, I hadn't spoken to her or her husband. They were ex-clients of mine. I used to be in physical therapy. They were both ex-clients of mine. I haven't spoken to them in probably well over 2 years. And
I think you froze there. Oh, you there? Did it freeze for everybody else?
I can't hear her either. Yeah, I did for.
Okay, darn.
Yeah, I can't
yeah,
hear
it's
you.
frozen.
Well, Gina, when you come back,
Oh, there we go. Here I am.
oh, there
Can
we
you hear
go.
me?
Perfect.
Okay. So I kind of left off saying, they've thought about moving, but they haven't really thought about it because they have a rent controlled apartment. But I said, well, it's always good to just kind of think about it and look at what your options are, because I have a feeling that once your apartment gets too small, it's going to get too small real fast. So basically, I posed it to her. I'm like, well, if you just had like a wish list, what would it be? And she was really game. She was very game to come back and just give me her whole wish list. And I didn't really know where to go from there. So I had to speak with my mentor, obviously, and ask her like what I should do. And I lined her up with a lender to at least just find out what they qualified for. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of fun, just learning
That
little
is
bit.
actually spot on. That is the best thing you can do.
Mhm.
In my experience, well, I'm gonna open my window, get some natural light in here. My experience with a lot of buyers, they're super scared. Like, even if they are quote unquote ready to actually buy, they're just like kind of comfortable in the position that they're in.
Mhm.
So they might need a little bit of like a nudge from us, like, a friendly nudge, not like do this now, but just like a little friendly nudge just to be like, hey, listen, you might as well, start the process now. So then
Mhm.
when you are ready and all of a sudden you are like, oh my gosh, like, oh, we need a bigger place. You have all of your ducks in a row, so to speak. So what I
Yeah,
often
so
do is,
I just need to follow up with them and make sure that they spoke with the lender. And then I actually spoke with Josh because I was having trouble getting into my MLS orientation because I haven't even done that yet. So I can't even like show them.
listings on the MLS and stuff. I think you froze there one more time. But yes, just to piggyback off of what you're saying though, what I will often do with people is, let's say somebody says, oh, I'm 6 months to a year out from purchasing. I'll highly recommend for them to go speak with a lender just to see what their financial picture looks like in that given moment. Because, for example, I've dealt with people who have upwards to a couple $1 million saved up in the bank, but because of how they make money, maybe they haven't worked in a year because they're an actor or an actress, or they're a director or producer or something where they're basically project based. But because they haven't worked in a year, they talk with a lender and they realize, oh shoot, we can't approve for a loan unless we want to go like hard money or something like that. So it's always a good idea to speak with a lender ahead of time, even if you're like 6 months out from actually pulling the trigger, just to see what you qualify for. You don't have to, go into a huge deep dive and everything, hitting your credit and all that kind of stuff. Even if you do, it doesn't, permanently hurt it. But the point is, the lender can specify a lot of different things that you can do to help your approval process. Maybe there's like a couple things. Oh, if you raise your credit just like a few more points, you're at another tier, and you get a better rate or something like that. So I always recommend somebody to go ahead and talk with the lender, get all your ducks in a row. And so then that way, when all of a sudden that time comes 6 months from now, you're ready to, pull that trigger, so to speak. Make sense? Awesome. Okay, so I said I was going to be in class today, but I'm still a little bit freaked out about getting a cold. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared of COVID now. But in any event, we want to do handwritten notes. Obviously, we were talking about that. So right now we would usually do our daily 10-4, go over all the different people that we've reached out to, all our connections that we're, kind of doing. By the by, has anybody put any contacts into their CRM, into Command?
I
Yeah,
tried.
Yeah, I've tried.
I've done a couple.
I'm just still trying to get like used to it. It's a little different, but I feel like
Wait.
once I get it,
Is there a course or a training for it? I saw in my little intro notes that we can schedule a time with somebody to maybe kind of guide us through it, or is it just go in there and struggle?
So talk to talk to Veronica, ask if there's somebody that you can go to directly, because if they say that in the notes, I'm sure there is. We used to have weekly classes on it. I don't know what happened to them, so I might want to ask them what's going on with that. Actually, I'm making a note for myself right now, because I'm not sure. But I remember when it first came out, yes, we had weekly classes on it. I flew all the way to Dallas just to learn about it. You know, it was a huge big deal. So, I think we definitely should be pushing forward with that and making sure that that is accessible to everybody, or at least having a weekly class on, or a bi-weekly class for, whatever. But I don't know the answer to that right now. I would say get in there and just kind of play around with it for right now. It is definitely, they could have done a little bit of better user interface. I'll admit that, but it does work very, very well once you get the hang of it. So get after it. But good job, everybody. That's awesome to hear. So, okay, in addition to adding contacts to our database, of course, we want to make sure that we're writing notes to the people that we've contacted over the past week. So, for example, if we did a bunch of lead generation on Sunday, today would be a great day to go ahead and write a note, or text a note, or email a note, or direct message a note to the person that we were just talking to the other day. Could just be as simple as, hey, we had a great convo, blah, blah, blah. It's a great way to follow up with people and potentially get some business. Okay, so get your head in the game. So we were talking about lead generation, the last two classes, how important it is. We're still going to talk about how important lead generation is, because it is literally the foundation of our business. If we look at this little, I am screen sharing. Okay, good. Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm sharing my screen. This is my little funnel that I love to talk about. So of course, everything starts with leads. We talked about that in the last two classes. We are right here setting up appointments. And obviously with more appointments, more agreements, more contracts, and more money in our pocket. Now it's time to work with the sellers. So the pre-listing packet and the listing presentation are the 1-2 punch that provides the sellers with the information that they need about the selling process and how your services benefit them. The two complement each other and are set up for the win-win listing presentation that leads to a signed agreement to get their property sold. So focus on the listing. Listings provide more exposure. So let me ask you, everybody, why do you think agents like to be listing focused as far as real estate goes? I'd rather have more listings and more buyers. Why is that?
Because they say that it's easier, to deal with a listing.
Definitely.
Go outside. That it's easier instead of working with buyers. At the same time, you can meet a lot more. You can get more leads also from having a listing. Like you sitting in an open house and you run into people who are looking to buy a house. They don't have an agent, so you can automatically become an agent, or try to become an agent to them.
Absolutely. A lot of people say, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. When we advertise for a listing, let's say, are we really just advertising to sell the person's house, or are we also advertising for ourselves? Of course. So the great part about having a listing, you have reasons to advertise the property, which obviously gets the house sold. But by advertising that listing, especially localized in a location, for example, right around the house, you're advertising and marketing for yourself. You're getting your name out, your exposure increases. You have a high likelihood of finding buyers at your listings. And then plus, when you're sitting at your open houses, and which I guarantee you're going to have this happen a lot, all the neighbors love to come into the house and see what the house looks like. How did Samantha and Joe live? I want to know if their bathroom is better than mine. I want to know if their backyard looks better than mine. People are nosy, but also some people are thinking about selling, and they're actually interviewing you as the listing agent. They want to know how you provide service to your clients, how you hold your open houses, what is your marketing like? And you're going to be surprised to find that when you're sitting open houses, even for other agents, you're going to find a lot of people who are coming into the place literally just to see who you are and how you represent the property. So listings give you leverage is the big answer that I'm looking for. With more leverage, you are able to do, I wouldn't say it's easier, but you can do a little bit less busy work than you would have to otherwise, and as far as finding clients and lead generation. So that's why we love listings. Okay. So let's see, we got a video coming up, develop your listing skills. Let's go ahead and give this video a watch. And just for everybody inside the classroom, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so let me get this video up and running. Develop your listing skills. Dun, 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 dun. Hold on. I wish I had like an assistant teacher who could like cue all this up. Okay.
Hi, my name is Gene Rivers, and I'm here today to tell you how to develop your listing skills to a very high level. And after you've done that, you'll be able to go in and take over market share. Number one, the best source for listing leads is from your sphere and past client list. The fact is, the people you know the people that are going to be moving, whether it's at church, school, work, friends, relatives. Focus on making sure they understand you're in the listing business. Create a pre-listing package that you would give every seller, but rename it your guide to selling homes successfully in your market. And then give that to the people in your database that you know have influence, that's collateral materials that they can give to their friends and refer you. Step two, focus on an area, product, or price range. When you develop mastery of a product or an area, you will much more quickly succeed in those areas. And in that area or in that product or price range, focus on the FSBOs in that area, the expireds in that area, door knock in that area, geographic farm in that area, and I'm talking a fairly tight area, so that the people in that area will really identify with you as someone who can help them sell property for top dollar with low hassle in a short amount of time. Now we're at number three. Everyone today that's looking at hiring an agent, whether it's a referral, even a past client, or a stranger who's gotten your name somehow, they're going to check you out on the web. So you need to make sure that your website is competent, that you've got basic, powerful content in there, and specifically that on the landing page, the very opening page, there is a direct offering to a seller. Find out what your home is worth, get a guide to selling your home. But if you don't do that, you're going to miss opportunities, because people will get your name, check your website out and go, I don't think so. I've seen a lot better sites. Fix your website with a database that you are working on a consistent basis, and with a tight focus, you build your reputation. If you're visible, you will find you will take over more and more listings, and in a very short amount of time, 12 to 24 months, you will own that market. That's how you take market share.
Good stuff. When he says it, it just sounds so simple. So what are some things that stood out in that little video that we just watched? Something that maybe like you're like, oh, I never really thought of it like that.
Well, with the websites, I see that was done in 2014. I know today we can use more social media, Facebook, Instagram.
Right.
So that kind of helped for me to this whole social presence.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, was he talking about, you know, a $50,000 custom developed website from a top end, you know, agency that creates like websites for like, you know, I don't know, the biggest companies in the world, or competent?
Just a confident, to the point website.
Boom. I want to stress that, because a lot of people I find, you know, get into the business very early, especially like newer agents, and they blow a lot of money on their website. And I'm telling you right now, websites are great. They need to be competent. They need to have exactly what he was talking about, a landing page where you can go, how much is my home worth? You know, I'm interested, set up appointments or whatever, etc. Absolutely important, integral. It should look good. Everything should work perfectly, all that fun stuff. But don't spend a lot of money on it. You can do it through command. I made my website through command. it works for me. It's not the best, I wouldn't call it like, Nike's website, but it's a really good website. It works just fine. Has all those things inside of it, built into it. It looks professional. Keller Williams actually did a study on websites that drive the most traffic and also has the most user interaction. And they actually created the template for our websites based on that. So they actually are very good ones, the ones that we get for free. Of course, you can jazz them up quite a bit. You can make them a little bit more, appealing. You can change the color schemes. You could add your own pictures in there. You can add your own sections, your own landing pages and stuff like that. So you can still customize it almost as much as you would if you were paying, a lot of money for it. But just keep in mind that we do have an option through Command that you can do that for free. And maybe even pay the marketing team or something like that, or ask them for some help if you wanted to customize some things. But the point is don't spend like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on your website. It is a lead capture tool. It is not a lead generation tool, if that makes sense. But definitely have a good website. What are some other things that the gentleman was talking about grabbing market share? Anything that stood out there? Excuse me. What he's referring to is circle prospecting, and I don't think we really discussed that too much yet. But circle prospecting is not just doing door knocking. It's cold calling, it's door knocking, it's checking on for sale by owners, it's looking at expired listings and making sure you're going around and doing every little bit you can to create market share. He was talking about creating your listing packet, turning it into like a little pamphlet, shortening it, condensing it, and so you can hand it out, for people. That's a great door knocking item. If you want, you could also mail them. So for example, I think what a really, really effective way to drum up some potential business is to mail them, knock them, call them, and try to, direct message them in some way or another. So whether that be email, Facebook, internet, etc. By doing all of those things within, I would say 3 weeks, almost everybody in that neighborhood should know who you are. If you're doing it properly. So keep that in mind when we are trying to get market share. You want to be top of mind when you start selling, marketing yourself in those neighborhoods. You want it to be like this. You all of a sudden you get an email. Oh, this real estate guy. Oh, another one. Great. Then you get a door knock. Oh, I finally meet this real estate guy. Wow, this guy is really persistent. Then you get something in the mail. Oh, this guy again. Wow. Then all of a sudden you are getting a call. Wow, this Jared. All I hear about is Jared. And at first you might think, oh God, they're going to think he's annoying. But if you keep doing that and you keep doing it spaced out enough, so it's not every single day, you'll all of a sudden get from, oh, this real estate guy to, oh, Jared, the guy who sells real estate in Bel Air. He's really persistent. I bet he's really, really good at selling houses. So the point is with consistency, you're also showing your work ethic. So don't be afraid to be consistent when it comes to your marketing or your lead generation in a given geographic farm. Make sense?
Yep.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Thanks, Nick. Sorry, somebody direct messaged me on this thing. 1 second. I didn't mean to click that. That was my Spotify. Hold on. Okay. Let's get back to the fun stuff. Hold on. Here we go. Boom. Boom. All right. Okay, so moving on. Anything else that stood out to anybody before we keep going? Awesome. Okay, so make it happen, working with sellers. It's time for your hard work and lead generation to pay off. Time to win some listing agreements. And you have 2 tools, an informative pre-listing packet and a high-impact listing presentation. Together, they will help you achieve the following. Pre-qualify the sellers to understand motivation. Now let's talk about that. Do you think that there's a chance that we could meet a person who says that they're interested in selling, but after talking with them, you just realize they're not realistic and it's not really worth your time. Come on, y'all. Does everybody need some coffee? All right, yes, absolutely. So for example, I remember once I was talking with this one seller, I was door knocking them. The wife said, yeah, come on by. We're interested in selling potentially. The husband was there. And then all of a sudden, when I knock on the door, the first thing he says is, I'm not selling unless it's $2,500,000. Well, the house was worth 1.5 million. Do you think that was worth my time? Not really. A little bit more information that I found though, they were a little bit underwater. So I don't know if the wife knew this, but the husband had taken out a lot of loans on the property. Maybe she did, but the husband certainly did. And there's a reason why he would only sell it for that amount. So yes, we can figure out motivation from a seller pretty quickly. And also if it's going to be worth our time. Now, does anybody have an issue taking an overpriced listing?
Yes.
Thank you.
What was the
Stephanie.
question again?
Yes.
No, what
Oh.
was the question?
Do you have an issue taking an overpriced listing?
Oh, I would say yes.
Yes,
I would say
absolutely.
yes.
And why do we not want to take an overpriced listing? Why is it not worth it to us to take an overpriced listing?
I think it sets you up for failure, and just like you're going to look bad as an agent, but you don't know what you're doing. And people will just laugh, honestly, that you are listing a home for that price when everyone knows it's overvalued or overmarket value.
Absolutely. It doesn't make you look good. And think about this. Whenever you get a new listing in a neighborhood, you're basically advertising to that neighborhood, this is my brand. This is what I bring to the table. And do I know what I'm doing? And with an overpriced listing, people are going to go, wait, never going to sell. Didn't their agent tell them that? And they blame it on the agent. Even I find myself doing this. Like I'll tell an agent, I'm like, all right, great. I saw this listing. It looks great, blah, blah, blah. I mean, my client's going to submit an offer at this price. And the agent comes back to me and they go, sorry, the client will only accept things, at this price, which is much higher. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Talk to your clients. Of course it's overpriced. Why are you doing this? And, of course the agent's like, it's not my fault. Of course I told them that, but they don't want to listen. And, frankly, the first thing I think is it's the agent and I know better. So I know it's the client telling the agent, I don't want to sell it for anything less than this, but it does make the agent look bad. But in any event, let's keep going. Position yourself as the expert, win the listing, allow the price to sell, allow you to price the home to sell and for the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time, properly set seller expectations, allowing you to create a great customer experience. So the pre-listing packet and the listing presentation are definitely supposed to be this 1-2 punch, and they do work very well together. So, okay, the pre-qualifying of the seller. When calling to set up a listing appointment with the seller, you will want to confirm important details, including their motivation to sell. Pre-qualifying the seller will help you prepare for the listing appointment and gives you insight into the mindset of the seller. It also helps you avoid wasting your time on those who aren't truly serious about selling their property. The pre-qualifying process is a conversation with the goal to get to know the seller better. Use scripts and questions on the next page as a guide for the conversation. Okay, do you think somebody's going to be much more motivated to sell if they are moving to Nebraska for a new job? I don't know. Than somebody who just wants to move down the street because they want a little bit of a bigger house?
Someone who's moving to Nebraska.
Absolutely. So do you think that person would be a little bit easier to have a conversation, at least as far as explaining to them that, hey, we need to sell this place quickly. We gotta, put it at least, maybe 5 to 10% under market value just to bring up enough, bids and create a bidding war and let's get it sold in a week. Yeah, they're going to be much more open to do that versus the person who, would sell if they got the right price. You know what I mean? So always keep that in mind when we're working with these types of people. And that's why it's very important to qualify. So on this next page that we have on the screen right now, This is a basically the pre-qualification form, so to speak. But also, this is a great form that while you're filling this out, you can be updating your CRM as well with this information. So first and foremost, we're going to get the seller's name, address, phone number, the appointment date, time, location. And then we're going to also ask a couple of these questions and literally say this: do you have about 5 minutes so I can ask you some important information questions before I come to meet you? Great. So first, you want to know how they hear about you. Why? Why do you want to know how they heard about you?
So you can go back and, like, if they heard about you from a friend or someone, thank that person and just continue to build your network. If it was like social media, you know, you can continue to do that, or that thing is working. So focus on those pieces that are working for you.
Yeah, sure. When we're marketing, we're basically doing some what's called A/B testing. You know, is my social media campaign working, or is my cold calling campaign working? And we want to know what the result is. Because why? We're going to put more effort into one or the other if that's the thing that's working a little bit better. Great, awesome, good answer. Where are you moving? Absolutely important. What's motivating you to move there? How soon do you have to be there? If we sell your home in the next 30 days, will that pose a problem for you? If yes, what would the problem be? What would happen if your home did not sell? How much would you want to list your home for? How much do you owe on the property? I'll be sending you a packet of information. Will you take a few minutes to review it before we meet? Why do you think that's an important question right there? Number 9. I'll be sending you a packet of information. Will you take a few minutes to review it before we meet? If the person says no.
It makes you think, it makes you see if they're really serious or not.
Absolutely. You give them a task. If you're working with somebody who's willing to knock out tasks that are given to them, do you think they'll be a little bit easier to work with during the escrow process?
Definitely, man.
Absolutely. Hey, no, I don't have time for this. Well, that's going to be interesting. Mainly because that's not a big deal, because I have worked with a lot of people who are very, very busy. But at the same time, I don't think that's an excuse. I work with a lot of busy people. They usually also happen to be high functioning people. So they're able to do, you know, walk and chew gum at the same time. But some people, especially in Los Angeles, you know, we live in a creative city or town. We might be working with some actors or actresses or influencers or whatever. And they may be very serious about selling, but they just might not have a lot of time, or they might not have the capacity to do all that kind of stuff. You know, they might be preoccupied with other things, but very serious about selling. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but we also want to know what kind of person we're dealing with. How they respond here might be a very good indication of how they will be responding when we're in escrow, meaning we just might have to be on top of them a little bit more. Not like you're cracking the whip or anything, but just like, hey, escrow sending you some documents. Did you have a chance to get to them? Okay, if you haven't, just remember, you know, get to it. So anyway, very important questions to ask. There's a couple more questions over here. Will all the decision makers be there when we meet? Very important to ask. Do you have any questions for me before we meet? So why is that an important question? Do you have any questions for me before we meet?
So you're prepared.
Boom. Absolutely. That's the difference between walking in blind, not knowing what their concerns are, versus, oh, great, you are concerned about finding a new house. You're concerned about, I don't know, market trends in the neighborhood. You're concerned about, I don't know, the commission structures, whatever it might be. You'll already be able to write that down, get all that information, add that to your listing presentation, or at least if you already have it in there, which you should, to, you know, pause a little bit on that and focus on that while you're in the meeting. So then it just, you know, calms any like fears that they might have, you know, brewing underneath the surface. So absolutely, you're already getting that out of the way. So when you go to the actual listing presentation in person, you'll be just all the more prepared. So absolutely. So this page, I highly recommend everybody to print out if you can. I'm going to put this into the chat box in the whatchamacallit, And so that way you can just get right into it and print it out. Okay, so yeah, it's in the chat box for everybody. If you want to do that, you can just click on it. If you know how to do this, you can also like print it as its own page. I don't know if you know how to do that, and save it as a PDF. But these are really, really great questions to ask before you meet with somebody for a listing presentation. Okay, the pre-listing packet. So an effective pre-listing packet positions you as, well, let me just minimize this, as a real estate expert of choice, the best person to get their home sold for the right price in the least amount of time with the least amount of hassle. The pre-listing packet plays two critical roles: pre-selling. The pre-listing materials are specifically designed to build sellers' confidence in you and to answer their questions and objections in advance of your presentation, saving time. A strong pre-listing packet will make the consultation experience just so much smoother and probably shorter than it otherwise would be. Basically, what you want to have happen is the pre-listing packet is going to answer all their questions that they're probably going to have for you when you meet with them. And you just want to get that out of the way. Because frankly, they'll probably be holding that when you go to meet with them. And it's great because you're literally, when you meet with somebody, especially in sales, especially in a service industry, if you've given them information that they've already read, which they will, and learn it by heart practically, you're gonna be surprised at how much it helps for you to sound consistent. So you give them a pre-listing packet. Now you're doing your listing presentation, and you're basically going over the exact same points that you did in the pre-listing packet. It doesn't make you sound repetitive. It just makes you sound competent, and it makes them go, "Oh yeah, I read that. Oh yeah, I read that. Oh yeah, he really knows his stuff." Even though it came from you, it's just good to just sound, consistent in front of your client, and it just builds confidence actually. Okay, it's kind of like this is a person who does what they say that they'll do, if that makes sense. All right. Okay. So this goes into a little bit about the pre-listing packet and what it would be. I highly recommend everybody to go into it and read it in length. For the interest of time, I'm not going to, go page by page, which I've done before. And I realize there's 79 pages in this, and most of them are just examples or samples of pre-listing packets. So we're not going to do all of that. But some of the stuff will be, I will help you with, and it gives you bullet points of negotiating, coordinating, et cetera, et cetera. Getting ready to list. The pre-listing packet, and by the by, you can find all of these things in Command. Again, you just kind of have to play around with it. It's usually under the marketing materials tab. So you're going to get ready to list. It's going to be 5 factors affecting the value of your property: location, condition, competition, timing, etc., recent sales. So that's a nice page for them to look at. Get ready to sell, price. This page of the pre-listing packet just basically talks about price. This is one of my favorite examples for clients. So this page is a big one. This page, why is talking about price with your client ahead of time really, really important?
So they have realistic expectations.
Yes, so they have real expectations. A lot of people have, for example, I was working with this one lady who, frankly, I have a lot of patience, but I don't think I have enough patience for her. We'll see. But, she would tell me, well, my friends in, I forget where, like some other state said that the market is doing this and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? So a lot of people are getting information, and well-intentioned, mind you, so don't be upset when you encounter this, but a lot of people get information from a lot of different, sources, and none of them seem to be reliable, frankly, but they like to think that they are. So oftentimes you'll hear somebody say, I think we should list 10% over market value to see if we get, an offer. Well, the issue with that we know as marketers in real estate is that once you list something, it stays out there and people see it, and people will think it's overpriced. They'll think something's wrong with the property. And then even when you do price it lower, it's never enough, for the people who are looking at the property. They still think it's overpriced. So this is super important. And I'm going to actually read this out for you because this is really important for all of us to know. Even if you don't have this printed out for your listing presentation, you should know this, these stats. Okay, a well-priced home that creates interest and attracts buyers generates showing and produces offers very quickly. An underpriced home will attract buyers that will sell quickly, yet may detract buyers who wonder what's wrong with it. And then obviously overpricing a home will be evidenced by the lack of interest. Now, if you price your home at market value, you will get 60% of the buyers in that market to come and look at your property. So that's at market value. You'll get 60% of the buyers who are looking in that area. Now, if you go just 10% below market value, you will have 75% of all the buyers in that market share coming to look at your open house. Now, if you go all the way down to like 15% below market value, you'll have 90%. Now, I do happen to agree with underpricing too much. It will kind of affect you. And you might not see that, increase if you're at the 15% mark. So for example, if we're talking about a $200,000 home, maybe 10% or even 15% might be, okay, because that dollar amount is pretty minute. Now versus a $20 million house, if you go a full 15% under market value, that's a lot of money you're leaving on the table. So we might have to adjust our expectations of how much we would underprice a property. Sometimes in our market, I just would do like 5% below market value, because that's, good enough amount of change for, to raise people's eyebrows. They'll be like, oh, that's a pretty good saving in comparison to this other property. So keep that in mind.
Well, I have a question. Yes. Real quick. When it comes to, when you say that, would you decide on what to price the house after you already went through and saw like the competition and the house itself? Because it makes sense to go down 10 to 15% after you see the competition or other houses. But when it comes to like a $2 million home, you're like, no, like this is worth 2 million or more. Like you make the decision after, right?
Yeah. So what I would do if I was going to meet with like clients to go over their property and to give them a listing presentation, I would have already known what the competition in the neighborhood is. I would have already known what the recent sales are. I would already know, and I would already have it all printed out, frankly. I'd have a comparative market analysis that I would have prepared for them. So I would know exactly what their home should be priced at. So yes, I would know all of that beforehand. Before I even meet with them, I would know that. And frankly, we should. That's why part of the daily 10-4, if we remember that, we didn't go over it too much this morning, but we want to make 10 contacts per day, 10 handwritten notes, 10 people into our CRM. But then the last one, the fourth one, which might seem not too important right now, but believe me, when you have a listing presentation, it will be important to know what's happening in the market, to preview 10 homes once a week. And what does that mean? Previewing 10 homes that are likely in a market that you're trying to work in. If you only work in Bel Air and Beverly Hills, you don't have to really go to 10 homes in Rancho Cucamonga, but you're going to want to know exactly what's happening in every single house that hits the market in Bel Air, every single house that hits the market in Beverly Hills, every house that is sold in Beverly Hills or Bel Air. You're going to want to know those numbers and what they sold for, and then eventually get the average price per square foot for specific types of homes. That's part of what we do as realtors. We not only are we marketers, we're also expert in our own markets as well. So yes, I would know those numbers, and frankly, I would know what houses are selling for price per square foot. For example, some areas in Bel Air, depending on the quality and location, we're looking at $1,200 per square foot for some properties. So I know that. And so when I'm meeting with somebody, when I'm walking into their house for the first time, I might be going, oh, okay, so this house is not updated. So it's not $1,200 per square foot, but it's not a tear down. So it's over $900 per square foot. So it's somewhere in that little, price range between $900 to $1,200 per square foot would be appropriate. And by walking through the home, that's where a little bit of feel comes into place, Christian. So I'll have like a little bit of like a Okay, so it's between these two numbers. It's not all the way here at the top. It's not all the way down here at the bottom. It's somewhere in the middle. So let's call it $1,000 to $1,100 per square foot. And then we'll kind of go from there and kind of judge what the pricing comes out to that way. So does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's what we would definitely do. And so, yeah, you definitely want to know those answers before getting into it. Okay, moving on down. Condition. This goes over condition and how important it is. Staging, how staging is important and it makes a huge difference. Standing out from the crowd, all that fun stuff. Questions for the sellers. The pre-listing packet should have questions for them. You want them to fill this stuff out. So remember, you're asking if they'll review this pre-listing packet and also fill it out to the best of their abilities. These are all very important things. Ideally, you would even get this back before you meet with them. Or if not, you can just review it with them in person. There's an additional page about you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is part of the pre-listing packet. I have a gardener outside my window. 1 second. There we go. So let's watch this video real quick, and we'll have a quick discussion right after.
Hi, I'm Josh Bass from Vancouver, Canada. I'm with Keller Williams for 8 years and been selling real estate for 18 years. Now I'm going to walk you through my listing presentation, and it's a 3-step process. The first part is preparation, the second part is presentation, and the third part is follow-up. A lot of my listings come by way of referral and repeat. And so when the call comes in and they want me to come over and list their home, I have a conversation about what their needs are. What exactly is it you're looking to do? Are you moving up? Are you moving down? I have them tell me exactly what the reasons are that they're selling for. I get a real sense of what direction that they want to go. One of the things that we've done to make my appointment setting a little easier is we've time blocked. We follow what Gary says. He says time block everything that you do. And we've time blocked our slots in advance for listing appointments. Every day, Monday to Friday, we have a slot available at 4 o'clock and a second slot available at 5:30. So I've got a potential of 10 listing appointments Monday to Friday. That makes my life a lot easier because I'm able to time block my lead generation first thing in the morning and not have my day so loose and scattered. So I'm trying to scramble on where to put a listing appointment. What we do now in our team is we've decided to go paperless with our evaluations, our CMAs. So instead of printing off paper, what we'll do is we'll take it on the computer and convert it to PDF, mark it up with a highlighter from there on the computer, and then create an email from that, email that package off to our client prior to going out to their home to list it. What I do when I go on a listing presentation is I meet the sellers at the door and I have them take me on a tour of the property. During that time, I'm actually asking them to tell me again, to recap again, what their motivation is for selling. So I'm getting them more comfortable with them moving out of their house is what I'm doing. That usually takes about 5 minutes. And when we're done there, we transition right over to the kitchen table. We'll talk about the market, the evaluation itself, and that in itself is about 15 minutes. Once we've agreed upon a price that we're going to list at, we'll sign a listing contract. They sign the initial 3-page contract. They sign the property disclosure statement, and they sign the working with a realtor brochure. Outside of those 3 documents, that's it. I send in my measuring company to come in and measure the home. I send in my stager who's going to contact them to come in and stage the home. And once she's done, then I send in the photographer and take the photos of the home. We always do a follow-up with them as well, just to say, how did that go? What was that experience like for you? Keeps them feeling like they're in control and very much a part of the process. And it lets them know that we're paying attention to every detail on their listing prior to it even being on the market. One of the expectations that I set with the sellers is that I phone them twice a week on purpose. So I set their expectation for me to phone them on Monday mornings with what's called the Monday morning update, where I review everything that's happened for their home over the past weekend with them. The second call that I set them up for to expect is on Fridays, and that's a Friday morning market update. And what I've set them up for is that I'm going to talk to them about any new listings that have hit the market, any expireds that have come off the market, and any solds that have actually just happened since that past week. They also know that on Friday, we're going to be talking about the numbers. Does the current list price that we're at right now still make sense in relation to the latest listings or the most current solds? They know in advance that that conversation could lead to a price reduction. And a lot of times they bring that on themselves. They say, hey, look, you know what? It looks like we might be a bit high, Josh. Should we bring it down? So it's a natural transition to a price reduction. One of the reasons I choose not to do a pre-listing package is when I'm sitting in front of them, I really want their full focus and attention. I want their attention on me, and I want to be able to ask them questions where they're giving me their full attention and not flipping through a pre-listing package. Most of their questions are going to come straight from their gut, and that's really what I'm looking for. I'm Josh Bath, and I just shared my listing presentation with you, and I wish you all the best with yours.
Awesome. Okay, and yes, Gina, you can find it on KW Connect. I don't know about necessarily the YouTube channel, but yes, you can find most of these little videos on KW Connect. Awesome. So, okay, what stood out for this this little video that we just watched? Anybody?
I like that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, he doesn't use the pre-listing package?
Gotta speak up just a little bit.
He doesn't use a pre-listing packet?
He doesn't use a pre-listing packet. Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, some people might not do that, but did anything else stand out other than that?
I thought the fact that he preemptively set up 2 times to talk to his sellers per week was interesting, because it can limit like the number of times they're going to contact you, or the expectation that you're always going to be every day checking in with them. It just kind of is a nice way to have touch points and make those times and meetings really purposeful.
Absolutely. And that's what I was also getting to. This gentleman, everything is systematized. So everything, for example, I've seen this happen with a lot of agents. You know, sometimes, especially when you're first starting out, or let's say, you know, you're working at a price point where, you know, you only need to sell 10 homes a year and you're doing better than 90% of the country. So I've seen this happen where a lot of people, they don't systematize what they do for their listings. It's, oh, I got a new listing. Yay. I'm going to talk about it to the office. Yay. And maybe in a day or two, I'll start working on the marketing material. And oh yeah, maybe this one gets a drone, or oh shoot, I need to get the photographer. And oh yeah, okay. And then 2 weeks later, you finally have everything put together, and now it's on the MLS, and everything's kind of hodgepodgey. And you know, the marketing's fine. You know, you're getting enough traction, but it's not systematized. You know, for example, you want to have everything in your business. It's like, I mean, not to use McDonald's as an example, but I'm going to use it. If you go to McDonald's anywhere in the country, you can pretty much expect the exact same burger in the exact same location every single time. I don't want to compare us to hamburgers necessarily, but we want to have some, you know, consistency in our business. So whenever I get a listing, the first couple things I do are X, Y, and Z, and every single time I get one is boom, 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 boom. And so it's very important. And then also setting up expectations, like Stephanie was saying, is by setting up these pre-calls. Hey, every Monday, I'm going to call you about this. Every Friday, I'm going to call you about that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're eliminating the big question marks that your clients are going to have. When are we going to talk next? Oh my God, I'm nervous about this. Oh my God, what? Don't worry. We're going to talk about that on every single Monday. We're going to talk about this. And every single Friday, we're going to talk about that. And then anything in between that pops up, I'll be sure to, you know, let you know as they, you know, as those things happen. But this takes a lot of the anxiety down from your sellers, and they go, oh, okay, they got it under control. I can relax. And it kind of sets expectations. And it's, believe me, it's an amazing thing that you can do for your business, not only just for your own self, but for your sellers, you know, peace of mind. So absolutely, 100%. Good point. Okay. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do this. There we go. Okay. So very good. Anything else that stood out before we keep going down? All right. So listing appointment. Once you've confirmed the appointment, pre-qualified the seller, and sent the pre-listing package, follow these steps in the listing appointment process. Greet them. You want to walk through the home. You want to do the listing presentation, comparable market analysis, a CMA, close the listing agreement, and then the next steps. So, okay, when you greet somebody, entering and touring the home is a key moment that can be emotional and exciting. Greet the seller warmly and thank them for the privilege of the appointment. So, for example, thank you for inviting me here to apply for the job of getting your home sold. I like it. Okay, walk through the home. If I could have, who's sitting in front of a computer right now? We're gonna do a little bit of popcorn. All right, Christian, if you could read step 2, walk through the home and down to right before home tour checklist.
So the kitchen table is the best place for the presentation because it is there the seller's most relaxed and friendly. And then you said, do you mind if I set my things down in the kitchen? Keep your home tour checklist with you and leave everything else at the table. At the end of the tour, it will feel natural to return to the kitchen for the presentation. If possible, tour the house without the sellers. This will give you the ability to focus on the tour, not the sellers. You will be able to control the time and agenda for the tour. Additionally, touring without the sellers will prevent the sellers from building up home's value in their minds by telling you every detail they perceive as positive. After the tour, be sure to compliment the house and bring up any positive details you notice during your tour. And then note, find this checklist in your Ignite toolkit available.
Oh, okay. And did you, okay, you read all that, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's really important about the kitchen table, it is so, let me ask you this. When are the only times that you sit in the living room to have a discussion?
When you're in trouble.
When you're in trouble, or you're picking up the daughter for prom, or etc. So the point is usually the living room is almost an interrogation place. It's not exactly the most comfortable situation. I don't know if you remember, maybe your grandma had plastic coverings over all the, sofas and chairs and stuff because you don't want to get it dirty. It's the one place in the house that looks like a museum, like nothing's ever touched. So it is an uncomfortable place for a lot of people subconsciously. Not, they're not thinking this is uncomfortable. It just subconsciously just has that kind of feel or vibe to it. So keep that in mind. When you're talking with, potential sellers, you want to find a place that's light and bright and airy. So what are conversations that you would have in the kitchen, for example, without not real estate related? You're at home, maybe you're with your parents. Think about when you were a kid. What were conversations in the kitchen like?
They're more educational, I think, more business like. I mean, when you're in the kitchen, you're probably doing your homework on the table. So it's more serious conversations. You're either like probably in trouble as well. I don't know.
Okay, maybe, sure. For me at least, and everybody's different. It's like, what are you gonna do today at school? How is school today? Are you gonna go play sports today? I don't know. For me, it's actually a little lighthearted, frankly. It's the day-to-day conversations that you have with mom and dad, or if you have your own place with your wife or your husband or what have your girlfriend. It's the first thing you do when you have a guest over. You walk over to the kitchen. Do you want anything to drink? Do you want any food? Do you want some snacks? Blah 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 blah. It's just like a lighthearted kind of friendly, non-threatening environment. And plus, I think we always like to be around food secretly, so food is always good too. And I love snacks. Whenever I can get snacks, I love it. And also, if somebody offers you a snack or a drink or a water, do you always accept it or you don't accept it?
You should
Accept it, I think.
Absolutely accept it. It builds rapport, actually. Surprisingly enough, by somebody offering you something, you're actually building rapport. So yes, you should accept it. And now let's say it's something sugary or something, and you're watching your figure. Just take a sip of it. You don't have to finish it. But and if it's alcohol, say no to it. That's the one thing I would say no to. If they're offering you a drink like wine or some, you know, booze or anything like that, say no to that. Even if they're drinking, you shouldn't be drinking. And you just say, oh, I don't drink while I'm on the job. That's simple. But hey, when we close this, if you want to have a drink, I'm happy to do that. You know, just make it just want to draw that line there, so to speak. Okay, the listing presentation. The listing presentation is where you will convince your sellers to list with you. It's your opportunity to explain the reasons why they should hire you to list their home and list the price you recommend at the listing appointment. You will create a great impression to build the seller's confidence in you as their real estate agent and choice to get their home sold. Excuse me. Share your price recommendation. The initial list price for their property, one that's designed to get the home sold in the shortest amount of time and for the most money possible. Set expectations for how you will market the home and work with the sellers. So in your listing presentation, you're going to go over all the different things you do for marketing. You're going to go over that same little slide that I showed you, that if you list it at market value, you should be able to expect to get, 60% of the market share. If you list a little bit below market value, you're going to get a much larger share of that market share. And so keep that in mind, that before we go over the list price, we're going to go over all of these things. So they actually are going to be the ones who say, Jared, because I noticed your little slide that had that in it. Do you think we should maybe list a little bit under market value? Oh gosh, that's such a great idea, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be great. And then that way they feel like they're involved in the pricing process, which they are, because frankly, we can only list a house on a price that the sellers agree to sell for. Simple as that. So keep that in mind. We're going to be going over all of that kind of stuff before we get into it. Okay. So again, this is going to be a lot of slides just basically on the actual listing presentation. I highly, again, recommend everybody to go into the chat that I just put the link to this to, and go ahead and look at all of these slides in depth. Now, when you're creating your own listing presentation on command, for example, feel free to have this, it's going to already have some things filled out for you. And that's fine. But just, look through this to see if there's anything in this that really stands out to you that you'd like to include that maybe it doesn't have in it already, because this was made in a different years ago. So what they actually have on there right now might be a little bit different. So there might be something said in here that you like more. So I highly recommend taking an opportunity to print this out and take a look at it. So we want to uncover the seller's needs. Remember, the listing consultation is about them and their needs, not about you. You are there to ask questions and listen to their answers. Your job is to make sure they see you as their expert advisor, one who knows the listing and selling process. Your advice and input will help them get what they want from the sale. Some rules of communication. Ask lots of questions. Don't just tell them things, ask them things. So for example, instead of saying, you need to list your house 10% below market value. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, after we just reviewed some of the slides about market share and how many people we can expect to come take a look at our home based upon how we're presented versus the other properties on the market, what do you think would be the best strategy to get your home sold for the most money in the shortest amount of time? Would it be listing it at market value? Would it be listing it above market value, or a little bit below market value? Ask them how, instead of telling them you have to list it below market value, you want to position it in a question. Ask them that question. That way they'll feel involved in the process. And also whatever answer they give you, you can hold it against them. So if all of a sudden they go, oh yeah, Jared, I do understand what you're talking about. Yeah, listing it a little bit below market value makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Let's do 10% below market value. Okay, great. Maybe you might think it might be a little bit higher than that. So fine, be like, great, you know what? I like 10%. Let's just do it at 8% because I think your home does have a lot of intrinsic value because of some of the upgrades that you've done, et cetera, et cetera. So let's do about 8%. Great, you agreed on 8%. You are literally 2 days, this is a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever. You're 2 days away from putting it live on the MLS. You're about to input it on the market. You give your seller a call, you say, hey, we're gonna be live on the MLS in the next 24 hours. Get excited. The first open houses are gonna start on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And then they go, you know, I thought about it. Maybe we should list it at, you know, just a little bit above market value. If you position your question or the pricing strategy as a question and they gave you that answer, you're now able to go, I see. But didn't you say you thought it was a good idea to list it below market value? And then they have to go back and go, yeah, I did say that. Yeah. And then that way you kind of hold them down a little bit. People typically want to stay in line with what they say in what they've said before in the past. Now we've all maybe had X's before that might prove that to be wrong, but the truth of the matter is typically most people like to stay in line with what they've said previously in the past. So that's just one strategy that I like to use, and it does help a lot. Okay. So going on more, it's all about you. Why are you moving, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I want everybody to go in here and read this, delivering a 10++ experience. So some of the things that you'd like to say is, I'd like for you to have a great experience selling your home. And that begins with me being very clear on what your expectations are. So I'd like to ask you about that, okay? Ask each question on the page, allow plenty of time for them to answer and write their answers in your packet. Allow equal time for both parties if it's the selling is a couple. So thank you for your honesty. Knowing how to deliver a 10++ experience helps me serve you the best possible way. Great. So this is the 10++ experience. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not so desirable and 10 being extremely desirable, what one thing has happened in this transaction what one thing has to happen in this transaction for your experience to be a 10? What is important to you about that? If we could add just one more thing, that other thing has to happen to make your experience a 10+. And what's important about that? And if there could be just one more thing to make this experience amazing for you, what would it be? And then what is important about that? By doing this, you're already setting up your expectations. So for example, I have had this happen before where I'm dealing with a very, very busy seller and we don't go over expectations. Now, I did everything that I possibly could. I ended up selling the house for well over asking. In fact, we're 5 to 10% above market value. We got it in escrow within a week. We closed early. And at the end of it, I go, hey, so this was great. Like, how do you think it went? Well, I thought we could have had a little more communication, but other than that, you did a great job. Oh no. I feel bad. Like I didn't do like an amazing job, which I know I did. But if I had had this conversation with them ahead of time, I would have found out communication is extremely important to them. Instead of just assuming, oh, they're really, really busy. They'll be fine. They're very high functioning people. I don't need to hold their hand that much. We'll just get this done and blah, blah, blah. Well, I should have asked them these questions before, because then I would have found out that even though they are busy, they want me to communicate with them 3-4 times a week. Whatever it might have been, I would have known that if I had asked those questions before. And so then that way, at the end of the process, when I do ask them, how did I do? They go, absolutely amazing. Now, they still are amazing clients and they've referred me a lot of business, actually. So I'm very thankful for them. I'm just saying I could have done a little bit better by determining what their expectations were ahead of time. Make sense? Awesome. Okay, so we're going to get into some more stuff. Why Keller Williams? It goes over why we're awesome, reliability, our track record, our knowledge, et cetera, and so on and so forth. We want to talk about our technology, how we're a team-based kind of brokerage. We all kind of try to work together in our own brokerage, where a lot of brokerages have people competing against each other constantly, all that fun stuff. Let's see. You want to go over what you get from me, communication. Your needs always come first. Experience and expertise, marketing, pricing, etc. all of this stuff is going to be in your listing package. We'll go over staging, all that fun stuff. Just going down. Again, I want everybody to have an opportunity, so please go into our KWU and look at this, or in the chat box if you're on there. Feel free to click on that and get into it. A smooth closing, okay. So if they've sold a home before, tell them it may have been a while since you've sold a home, so let's look at what's expected of sellers at the closing table. If it's their first time selling, let's review what's expected at the closing table, etc. So we want to go over the closing process with our sellers ahead of time. You know, a lot of my sellers have sold a house before, but you still want to go over it again. You know, before they may have used a realtor who, you know, wasn't very hands-on, or wasn't, you know, this, or maybe the escrow officer took care of a lot of the other things, but you just want to review it again with them just to make sure they know what to expect. Frankly, a lot of times they're a little bit shocked with how much paperwork there is these days. There's more paperwork now than there was 20 years ago. So keep that in mind. We want to go over that and set expectations. Okay, let's see. In the listing presentation, we're going to go over the 3 factors that get your home sold. So for everybody who had just, you know, gotten their real estate license, this is your time to shine. What are some things that affect price and saleability of a home? Pretty much right on the page, but we can expand on that.
The
Condition, marketing, and price of the home. So it's basically, you know, the only things that really affect price are condition, location, and price, frankly. We want to make sure our price is in line with recent sales. The location of a home is extremely important. If I'm thinking of, for example, Linda Flora or Stradella, those 2 streets have views on both sides of the street, but one side is much better than the other. So on Stradella, if you're looking east, you have a view of the reservoir and the city, which is gorgeous, and it definitely increases the value of somebody's home. Now, on the flip side, if you're on the other side of the street facing west, depending where you are on Stradella, you could have an ocean view, or you could just have a view into the canyon of Roscommare, looking down at the street. Those are going to affect the price greatly. If you're on Linda Flora, one side is just looking into a canyon, where the other side is looking into a gorgeous canyon with much more expansive views that's never going to be built upon because it's owned by the Santa Monica Conservatory or something like that. And then some of them actually have ocean views. So the point is, depending on the side of the street you are, location can affect price. So we want to make sure we're discussing that with our clients. For example, one side of the street, you might be somewhere else in Los Angeles. One side of the street is backed up to a hill. The other side is backed up to, you know, nothing. It's just overlooking a nice little view of the city or something like that. So these things are very important to keep in mind when we're pricing a property. Okay, then we can get into functional obsolescence and all that kind of stuff, but that's pretty much what we're getting at. All right. Okay, so we go over condition. We want to discuss all the different points that are really, really important. Obviously, curb appeal is huge. The first thing that people see when they pull up to the house, we want to make sure that looks as nice as in showing condition as possible. So for example, sometimes people will have a little bit of an extra budget where they're willing to, you know, put in, you know, a few $1,000s in, you know, yard work, making sure it looks beautiful, nice, maybe repainting some of the exterior, just so it looks really, really, really nice when people just walk in. Oftentimes it's just like little things here or there, maybe power washing the driveways, etc., stuff like that. Very important when you walk in the foyer, the first thing they see when they walk into the house needs to be nice and clean and tidy. Also an area where you might want to, you know, put in a little bit of elbow grease and make sure it looks in great condition. All right. Moving forward, marketing. We're going to go over our marketing and our listing presentations. Literally, this is a 14-step marketing plan that we have on this. I have like a 21-step marketing plan. It's pretty much the 14-step. I just, you know, extend it a little bit, just so it looks a little bit like I'm doing more, just being honest. But it's very effective just to pinpoint every single thing that we do. Very important to go over that with your sellers. Okay, it goes back into a lot of the exposure that we have on our websites and stuff like that. We want to go over price to sell. This goes over the same thing that was in the pre-listing packet. I have the exact same page in the pre-listing packet as I do in my listing presentation. I just like it. It has a little more congruity, like everything goes together. I like that kind of feel. Again, I'm going back to the thing, when somebody expects something from you and you stay consistent, that just helps to build rapport. So I just use the exact same page. Maybe I juice it up a little bit if I think about it, but it's pretty much more or less the same. Okay, let's see. Comparative properties. So yes, I think it was Christian who was asking me earlier, what would I do as far as, pricing? Like, would I know that ahead of time, or would I not discuss price until I, was sure and looked at all the comps? Well, this is exactly that. You're going to do a comparative market analysis before you meet with them. You're going to go around and look at all the homes that were built in the same year, give or take 5 years. You're going to look at all the homes that are the same bed bath count, hopefully exact same. Square footage within 10%. You're going to want to have something very comparable square footage wise. After you get all those numbers together, your CMA is going to give you basically an average price per square foot for those homes. And you'll probably just use that as your kind of, as your compass as far as pricing goes with that property. CMAs are extremely important. In fact, I find the CMA to be, in my CMA is pretty much my pre-listing packet, actually. I have all the different things that I'm going to discuss in my listing presentation in my CMA. So when I send that out to somebody, when they're reviewing that, if I have them review that ahead of time, it already has all that stuff in it, and it'll discuss all of that. The one thing that I do send to them in the CMA, that I don't send to them in the CMA, is my recommendation for price. My recommendation for price only comes when I get to meet with you face to face in your kitchen going over stuff. Why do I want to wait until I'm face to face with them?
They could cancel otherwise. And also you can deliver it like, with sensitivity, knowing after you've already asked them what they expect their home to sell for.
Absolutely. 100%. Rockstar. Stephanie gets a gold star today. Yes. So basically they may get, even if they're like, oh my gosh, my house is worth more than I thought it was. They may go, well, okay, let me think about it. And frankly, that's a very human nature thing to do. So I'd rather have that moment when we're face to face and I actually have the listing agreement in my hand with a pen, and I just go, so based on what we've discussed, let's talk about pricing, and we'll go over that. And I try to do this thing where I get them to say the price, not me. And I do that by showing them comparable properties, one that's in better condition than theirs, one that's in worse condition from theirs, and one that's pretty much spot on, almost a spitting replica of their house, except the decoration's different. And I'm going to ask them, how does your house compare to this house, the one that's much better? They're going to go, oh, well, the kitchen's more updated. The bathrooms have been completely redone. The flooring has been redone. These are all tract homes. So I know most of the homes have a similar layout, but they've clearly opened up the floor plan a little bit. So yeah, okay. Yeah. That one's a little bit better condition. Okay, great. And it's sold for this much. Great. Let's remember that. And we'll go down to the lower price home, the one that's a total fixer, a total tear down. These homes were all built in 1960s to 1970s, something like that. And, their house, the one that we're sitting in and doing a listing presentation for, let's say it's been updated through the years, but nothing extensive. Maybe they redid the floors. Maybe they did some paint. They have a newish kitchen. Maybe it was redone, 10, 15 years ago. It's not brand spanking new, but the other one that we're looking at has linoleum floors in the kitchen. It has, the most dated wallpaper all over the place. You could tell that it really needs, a little bit of TLC. Well, how does your home compare to that? No, ours is a little bit better. Okay, great. I agree. Let's see what this home sold for. Oh, wow. Sold for very little. Okay, let's remember that. And then finally, I'll go to the one that really kind of represents their property the best. And I'll say, well, how about this one? And they go, oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. I love it. It looks like my house, except, you know, they did this with the kitchen and we did that. But, you know, honestly, it's kind of a wash. And, you know, the square footage is pretty much the same. And, you know, I love what they did with the landscaping. You know, ours is, you know, just as nice, a little bit different, but, you know, yeah, it looks great. Okay. So between these three homes, which home do you think your home falls in line with the most? This one. Great. What did that one sell for? Blah, 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 blah. So do you think that your home is more comparable to this one as far as price and condition? Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, it sold for $1,000 per square foot. What do you think about that? Yeah, you know, I think our house would probably go for $1,000 per square foot too. Perfect. That way they came up with it. I didn't force feed it to them. I didn't say, this is how much your home is worth. That's it. And once we agree on that, I'll literally go, well, great. The next step that we should do, so I could start getting to work for you, is we should sign the listing agreement. Let's put it out, you know, we'll agree that we'll put it on the market in 2 weeks. That gives us enough time to do any staging that if we need to. That gives us enough time to get, you know, the home into showable condition. We're going to want to remove all the, you know, the personal items and stuff, put it in the garage, or, you know, get one of those storage containers or something, and literally get them to sign on the spot. When they first agree that, yes, I think my home is worth this much, that's when I want to go in for the close. I want to close right then and there. I don't want to say, okay, great, I'll send you the stuff in a little bit, or okay, you know, let me get back to you in a week and we'll sign all the paperwork. No, do it right there on the spot. And even better is if you have access to, if you already have their email address, which is why the pre-listing packet is so important. You can literally have on your phone, just get it ready to go, and literally click send right there when you're on the spot and say, hey, I just sent over the listing information to you. If you open it up on DocuSign and just click, 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 we'll be ready to go. And then that way you can have a digital copy as well. But some people would rather do it in person with a pen and a piece of paper, old school. You probably will end up sending it to them via DocuSign after the fact. But as long as you have that listing signed by them, that's legal and valid, and it doesn't have to be in digital form. But that way you have a backup for it. And likely, if you're using a transaction coordinator, they're going to have them re-sign it anyway. Okay, makes sense? Awesome. Okay, so we've gone over pricing for the home already. My computer is about to die. Okay. So a lot of this stuff goes into the seller disclosures, a lot of boring stuff. Important, but you know, I recommend everybody to read this ahead of time. Read this on your own time. So this is also has some activities, what to expect next checklist. We're going to put a sign in the yard. We're going to give them a due date for that, lockbox on the door, due date for that, post in the MLS, KWLS, staging, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We'll have all that, you know, set up for them and ready to rock and roll. But other than that, you know, there's also a moving checklist, which I think is really valuable. Have that in your listing presentation packet. It just makes them feel, much more comfortable. And what else? Okay, your turn. So that's pretty much all the information that we have for today in the class. Does anybody have any questions that they want to go over? Anything that, you know, maybe because I talk really fast a lot of times. So anything that kind of blew over that you wanted to go back to, any questions that you have about the listing presentations and stuff. Admittedly, I have not created a new listing presentation in the last 2 years. So things may have changed on command. I'm not the best resource for figuring that out, but I do believe it's fairly easy to find. If you look through the marketing, it should be under that in the command section. But any other questions before we break for the until Wednesday?
Is there a class next Monday on Labor Day or no?
I don't know yet. Probably not. Likely no.
Jared, can you put your phone number on the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's my number. Feel free to text me before calling. I mean, you can call me anytime, but I get a lot of sales calls. So if I don't have your number saved already, I might just kind of like ignore it or send you a text message back and just be like, hey, so sorry, I was on the phone. How can I help? So just keep that in mind. But yeah, send me a text message first. I'm typically usually very, very available. Any other questions?
If I'm not able to make it next Wednesday, I'm going to Disneyland. How do I am I able to just watch the video of the previous time on my own and that still count?
Yeah, that's fine. You could, for example, you could watch it on Facebook. I think that they post it live on Facebook, and then you can go back to it. Also, if you miss a class, you can just make it up, or just, call me and we'll talk about it, something like that. Cool.
Okay, thank you.
All right, just before we go, we will get a lot of these questions. We're just not sure yet. Your commission seems high. We'd like to sleep on it. We're interviewing other agents before we make a decision. How long have you been in the business? These are all objections that are going to be coming up. There are some really great responses to that. Your commission seems really, really high. I understand that. However, it's non-negotiable. The amount of money that I put up for marketing and all the staging and all the services that we offer seems very much so in line with what we have, what we're offering. Now, if they still go, yeah, but somebody else will do it for cheaper. My favorite thing is to say is, well, if I'm willing to negotiate my commission so quickly, how quickly do you think I'll be willing to negotiate the price of your home? And then they usually go, oh, I see. And it's a good point. Somebody who's willing to negotiate their commission, they're probably going to say, oh yeah, if you write it a little bit lower, I'm sure I could get them to sign, and you don't want to be with that kind of an agent. So keep that in mind. That's a really good retort to that. Is there any other questions before we go? All right. Well, thank you all for joining. The next class is Wednesday, and I'm kind of on the fence if I'm going to be in the classroom. It's my own personal thing. I get a little bit nervous about the new variants and stuff like that. But I might be in there. If not, it'll be online as always, even if I am there. So hope everybody has a great week. Get out there, make some calls, and I'll talk to you all on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.